Have you ever failed once and thought, maybe this just isn't for me? What if I told you there's a man who failed over 1,000 times and still became one of the most celebrated inventors in history? Today, we're stepping into the life of Thomas Edison, not just to talk about the invention of the light bulb, but to understand the incredible mindset that turned relentless failure into a legacy of light. Thomas Alva Edison was born on February 11, 1847, in the small town of Milan, Ohio, USA. He was the youngest of 7 children in a large, working-class family. His father, Samuel Edison, was a man of many trades, while his mother, Nancy Edison, was a schoolteacher, a gentle, wise woman who would later shape her son's destiny in the most powerful way. From the moment he could walk and talk, Thomas was different. Not the kind of different people praise, but the kind that causes raised eyebrows and impatient sighs. He was restless. Always moving. Always talking. Always questioning. He would point to a bird and ask, "Why does it fly?" He'd hear thunder and demand, "What made that sound?" He would take apart a clock just to see what made it tick. In the eyes of others, he was a troublemaker. In truth, he was a child obsessed with understanding the world. When he finally entered formal school at the age of 7, it was supposed to be the start of his academic journey. But it turned out to be something else entirely. Just 12 weeks in, his teachers had already made up their minds. He doesn't sit still. He doesn't pay attention. He asks too many questions. He's slow. Those words crushed some children. But not Edison. Still, he was pulled out of school, labeled as difficult, disruptive, and even mentally unfit to learn. But here's where the story takes a powerful turn. Because one person, one extraordinary woman, refused to accept that label. His mother, Nancy Edison, believed in her son with a faith that could move mountains. She knew her boy wasn't broken. She knew he wasn't slow. She saw a brain that buzzed with electricity, a mind hungry for knowledge, just not the kind found in rigid classrooms. So she did the unthinkable at the time. She began teaching him at home. She filled his world with books, not just storybooks, but science books, history books, and philosophical texts. She gave him freedom to tinker in the basement, where he conducted homemade experiments using household items. She let him make mistakes. She let him blow things up. She let him learn. And most importantly, she gave him belief. When the world said, "You can't," she said, "Try." When the world said, "You're slow," she said, "You're gifted." That belief, simple, fierce, and unwavering, lit a spark in Thomas Edison that no one could put out. He would later say, "My mother was the making of me. She was so true, so sure of me. And I felt I had someone to live for, someone I must not disappoint." As a child, Thomas Edison's curiosity was unquenchable. While most children played games or followed routines, young Edison was constantly exploring, observing, and asking why. The world to him wasn't a place to merely live in, it was a giant, unexplored machine full of moving parts, waiting to be understood. By the age of 12, while many kids were still in school, Edison had already stepped into the real world. He took a job as a news butcher, someone who sold newspapers, snacks, and magazines on the Grand Trunk Railway, traveling between Port Huron and Detroit. But even then, he wasn't content with just making a sale. While other boys simply sold papers, Edison turned the train into a classroom. In the baggage car, amid crates and luggage, he built a small laboratory using his own savings. There, he conducted chemistry experiments during travel, using whatever he could gather: jars, wires, acids, bottles, and makeshift equipment. This mobile lab was more than just a hobby. It was a symbol of his relentless drive to test theories, try new ideas, and learn through hands-on experience. But he didn't stop there. Using a second-hand printing press and leftover paper, he started his very own newspaper, the Grand Trunk Herald, the first newspaper ever published on a moving train. He wrote articles, printed them while traveling, and sold them to passengers on board. It was a clever combination of business, creativity, and technology long before the age of startups. Edison was not born into wealth. There were no golden opportunities handed to him. He had no formal lab, no grants, no expensive equipment. But he used what he had: his hands, his mind, and an insatiable hunger to learn. Unfortunately, not all experiments go as planned. One fateful day, while the train was in motion, one of his chemical experiments caused a fire in the baggage car. The flames spread quickly, and though he tried to stop it, the damage was done. The conductor, furious and panicked, slapped Edison hard across the face, partially damaging his hearing, an injury that would follow him for the rest of his life. He was kicked off the train, his lab was destroyed, and he lost his only workspace. For most people, that would have been the end. A moment of embarrassment, pain, and loss that might have shattered their spirit. But not Edison. That fire didn't destroy his curiosity. It ignited his resilience. In his own words, he later said, "Many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up." He didn't give up. Instead, in his late teens and early 20s, Edison turned his attention to telegraphy, a cutting-edge communication technology at the time. He became a telegraph operator, a job that required fast thinking, precision, and long hours of focus. While other operators passed time between signals by relaxing or chatting, Edison used every spare moment to study, to read, and most importantly, to invent. He often worked the graveyard shifts, where he could experiment freely with wires, circuits, and tools. He dismantled and rebuilt telegraph machines to understand how they worked. He modified them, improved them, and soon, he began designing his own inventions little by little, idea by idea. These late-night sessions, filled with trial, error, sparks, failures, and breakthroughs, would lay the foundation for a future that no one, not even Edison himself, could have predicted. 3. When Thomas Edison was 22 years old, he made something new. It was a vote recording machine. It was his first invention to get a patent, a legal paper that says it is your idea. He was proud. But nobody wanted to buy it. No one used it. It failed. But Edison didn't stop. He didn't feel sad for long. He didn't say, "I give up." Instead, he said, "I haven't failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." This was how he lived. He didn't fear mistakes. He loved to learn from each one. He wasn't chasing money or fame. He was chasing ideas. In 1876, Edison opened a special lab in Menlo Park, New Jersey. It was not a normal lab. It was the first real invention lab in the world. People came there to create new things. Edison worked with a team. They were like warriors of science. They worked day and night. They wrote in notebooks. They failed many times, but always tried again. In this lab, they made many great things. The phonograph, the first machine that could record sound. Better versions of the telegraph and telephone. And most importantly, they began to work on the electric light. In the 1800s, some electric lights already existed. But they were dangerous. They were very expensive. And they didn't last long. Edison had a big dream. He wanted to make a light bulb that was safe, cheap, long-lasting, and good for every home in the world. But making it was not easy. He and his team tried many materials to make the light bulb work. They used paper, cardboard, horsehair, bamboo, platinum, even coconut fiber. Nothing worked. The light turned on, but only for a second. Then it stopped. But Edison did not stop. He said, "Try again. And again. And again." Finally, one day, they used bamboo. They burned the bamboo in a special way, called carbonizing. And something amazing happened. The light stayed on for 13.5 hours. Then they made it better, it stayed on for 100 hours. Later, even 1,000 hours. It worked. He did it. After many failures, burns, and sleepless nights, the world finally had a safe electric light bulb. And because of that, the world was never the same again. In 1879, the world didn't just gain light, it witnessed the power of human perseverance. A single invention changed the course of history, not because it was easy, not because it was guaranteed, but because one man, Thomas Edison, refused to give up. Yes, he invented the light bulb. But Edison didn't stop at the bulb. He understood something that most people overlook. An idea, no matter how brilliant, is useless without a system to support it. What good is a light bulb if no one can use it? So he went further. He didn't just invent a glowing filament. He engineered an entire power system from scratch. Generators to produce electricity. Wires and poles to carry it. Meters to measure it. Sockets and switches so people could safely control it. And then, he did something no one else had ever done. He built the very first electric power station in New York City, launching the world's first power grid. For the first time in human history, streets sparkled at night. Homes buzzed with life. Factories stayed open beyond sunset. And darkness was no longer a barrier to progress. It wasn't just about light, it was about possibility. A world once ruled by shadows had entered a new era. And it all began with a man who failed 1,000 times. But here's what's even more incredible. Thomas Edison was not born a genius. He was born curious. He was called slow by teachers. He was misunderstood, rejected, and often ignored. But he never let those labels define him. He chose to believe in something bigger than failure. He turned failure into a friend, a guide, not a grave. He turned rejection into redirection, using every no as a reason to refine. He turned doubt into discipline, showing up every day when it was easier to quit. While others saw defeat, he saw discovery. While the world measured success in shortcuts, he measured it in resilience. He didn't stop at 10 failures. He didn't stop at 100. He didn't stop at 999. Because he understood something most people never learn. Success isn't about brilliance. It's about belief. Belief that you are not your mistakes. You are not your past. You are not your fears, your doubts, or your critics. Belief that if you keep showing up, keep trying, keep learning, your light will shine, even if it takes 1,000 tries. So the next time you feel like giving up, when the path gets hard, when people laugh at your dream, when the failure feels too heavy, remember Edison. Remember the boy who was homeschooled because he didn't fit in. The man who kept going when everyone said it couldn't be done. The inventor who lit up the world because he refused to quit. Your dream. It might take time. It might take patience. It might take effort, and yes, it might even take 1,000 tries. But when you succeed, when your moment finally comes, the world will see your light. And it will be worth every step, every setback, every sleepless night. So don't stop. Don't shrink. Don't let the darkness win. Get up. Take one more step. Try again. Because you, too, were made to shine.